talking today to Thomas Gatus, who's one of the co-writers for a script that's in competition in Milan, War of Lions. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I appreciate it.
No, thank you, and welcome to Milan. Now, this is, we should point out, this is from an actual, not a story. Sorry, this is started as a novel, and then...
Well, actually, it's a memoir.
Memoir, okay.
And it was a collection of stories by Victor Perantoni that he told his family. And the man who wrote the initial book, it was called Arrivederci Leopolis. And I ran into him online because he was looking for some help in marketing his book. And I just, because it was on a writer's site on the internet.
Just completely coincidental, completely random.
Completely, yeah.
You hooked up.
Yeah. So
no, but yeah.
Yeah, and we talked a bit about the marketing, and I tried to give him some ideas I had because I had published a book of poetry before, and I had some thoughts that might have helped him. And actually, there were things that hadn't occurred to him because it was his first publication too.
Yeah.
So after a few months of back and forth on the internet, he just simply asked me at one point if I would be interested in adapting this because he knew I was a screenwriter. And I said, just send me a copy, I'll look at it. If I think I can do it, yeah, I'd like to, because I'm half Polish and half Italian, and this story is an Italian family set in Poland.
Could you give us a synopsis of what this, because it's not a bullet, we should point out, this is not a bullets and bombs story at all, is it? It's
not really, no.
I know that's set in the Second World War. Could you explain what the crux of the story is?
Yeah, okay. In 1939, September 28th, the senior Carlo Perantoni, who owned this tavern in Lvov, Poland at the time, received a message from, I don't know if it was Krakow or if it was from Warsaw, but it was the I forget what you call that, the diplomatic person, but anyway, telephoned him and said, you have 4 days to get out of Poland.
Get out.
Tell all the Italians in Galicia, which was the province, that you can contact, because they knew him as someone who they often had dealings with, because his tavern was kind of a boutique tavern, an Italian tavern in Poland. He was serving Italian wines and vermouth.
So he's really plugged into the whole community.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so that's why they called him, or one person that we know for sure. And he began alerting other people, and he began to close down his tavern. And Carlo, his wife Romana, they had 2 sons, Luigi and Victor, who is the original author of George's memoir. The 4 of them left. 3 of them went to Italy, and Victor went to Switzerland because he was eligible for the Italian draft.
Well, that's interesting. So they decamped, 3 of them decamped to Italy, 1 to Switzerland, but of course Italy, as we all know, aligned itself with the Nazis in any case.
Right.
But I suppose at that time they had no choice really, stay or leave. So we're talking literally the outbreak of the Second World War.
Yes.
Frankly, aren't we?
Yes, and if I can just backtrack a little bit, the tavern had a regular group of clients, of people in the neighborhood, but also there was a Catholic priest who apparently enjoyed Italian wines when he wasn't in the Vatican.
And why ever not?
Yeah, and some other people that, that just, for example, there was a stamp club that had their meetings. I don't know if it was daily, weekly, or monthly, but these guys met at the Italian Vinaria for drinks, and they used stamps for poker chips. And several of them were very talented designers, and one individual in particular was a printer named Andre Frodel. And he was pretty well known at the time as a stamp creator. Some people thought that he was actually making counterfeit stamps, but that wasn't the intention. It was his artistic output. He loved making stamps. It's like some people love making videos and movies and everything else. So it was his artistic expression. But he was pretty well known in a lot of Europe. So there was a point when the Germans came across the Westerplatte, and about a week later they bombed Lvov, I assume now, because they were trying to knock out the railway. But they also hit a cathedral and an orphanage with the bombs. And the orphanage was destroyed, but apparently none of the children were killed. And this Catholic priest that was there made it his goal to get these children out. And out of 203, there was a group, let's say 30 or 40 maybe, that were Jewish. And Frodel and the rest of them knew that they would have a problem because all of that background material, they already knew bad things were happening to Jewish people.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this has been sorry to interrupt, but I mean, everything to do with the Jewish persecution through Germany that had been going on since 36, something like that.
I'm not sure the year.
Yeah. So that obviously all filtered through.
Yeah. So fortunately, when Carlo left, he gave the priest 500 Polish zlotys to help anybody left in the city that needed help, and that was a big chunk of money at the time.
That was a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and so the priest used that money to buy 2 big farm wagons to haul these kids. And the stamp collectors and the printer, Frodel, forged the documents to get the Jewish children Christian identity, and Frodel also forged a papal pass signed by Pius XII, I guess. He forged it to get all of the kids and the priest out of Lvov, Poland, and that priest took them all the way to the Vatican. I think they had
Literally.
to take. I think they had to take. They had to walk and go in the horse carts as far as I want to say Budapest, and after that they caught a train. But they got there with no further stops because of that pass, and that tells you something about Mr. Frodel, which will come up in a few minutes.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, I was going to say so you were starting to get involved in the book, and can it be turned into a script? And I'm guessing you read through the book and you're like, actually, there is something here, in terms of making this into a script and then co-writing this. At what point? What I'm trying to say is, at what point do you think, actually, this will work? I'm in on this.
Well, I read George's original book 2 times, and the third time, I picked all the scenes I wanted and kind of put them in linear chronological order. And then there were a lot of gaps, so this is the first adaptation I did, and I was sitting there thinking about it, and I decided to make Victor the protagonist, but also the narrator. So Victor is going to explain something, but it's not duplicated anywhere. It's to make the transition from one scene to another.
Right.
And so that worked pretty well. I had a little difficulty with it because there were gaps. The story that Victor originally told had a lot of gaps because his friends were scattered.
So the story was not incomplete, but, or maybe it is the right word, it was...
I just gave you the beginning.
Right.
So what happened is all of these friends that the Parentones left, they were stuck in Poland. So Frodel and a friend of his, young Polish guy, were drafted into the Russian army the Soviet army after Stalin gifted Hitler Eastern Poland. One invaded, then the other invaded, and nobody was expecting even the invasion, let alone the counter-invasion. And these two of these people wound up in the Soviet army. One of them was sent to Siberia to a gulag, Frodel, because he was 50 years old and he was told he was too old to fight. So they sent him to a gulag.
Oh, God.
And the other guy was 20 years younger. He was just, I think still, he just finished his college level, whatever you call it, university level education. And he was supposed to become a postal clerk in Gdansk, which didn't happen either. So there is this connection all the way through of keeping track of these people.
Yeah.
And then the Parentoni family, and then Victor relating the story as he heard it later. So piece it together with his narration, and then have scenes with the actual people who went through the experience.
How long did it take to actually? I mean, I suppose you could say scripts never finish, but because people, no, you know what I mean. There's always tweaks,
yeah,
but
sure.
How long did this version take to actually complete?
I think once I cut out the scenes, I think it took about maybe 6 weeks.
That's pretty good. And that's in collaboration with George, because I'm assuming you're writing the script and then...
Well, you know, actually, I didn't talk to George much during the writing of the script.
Right.
Because he wrote the book and he knew what was in it.
And it was you to do it.
And if you start getting people who aren't familiar with writing screenplays, you got to spend a lot of time explaining things.
Right.
You're going to have tension and disagreements because
writing a script is not the same as writing a book. Let's be honest about it. It's completely different.
So I thought I'll present the finished product, which I think is like 109 pages.
Right.
So he got the script, and within a day or two, he called me back and or emailed me back and said he loved it, which was a big surprise because I cut over 140 pages out of his book, but it was on subjects that really weren't central. It was Victor's life. It wasn't just the war. It was his belief, his religion. It was his political belief. It was a lot of other things about him personally, but I just cut all that out and focused on actually the 5 years from 39 to 45.
Yeah, I mean, it's when George phoned me, Skyped me a couple of 3 weeks ago, and really engaging because it wasn't just about the book and script. He went off at tangents, which were devilishly interesting, and I can remember thinking, God, if this could go on for hours, in a good way. He's
immersed himself in the East European history.
Oh yeah, and he really knew it.
He has he has established an internet presence because I'm an internet idiot.
And you leave him to get on board with that. Yeah, I'll bet you do.
Yeah. So George is happy to take care of that, but when his book was first out, when we made contact, he had about a little over 800 hits on that book.
Right.
A year and a half later, after we finished with 2 awards in Monaco last year, 13,000 hits. That's a nice jump.
That's nice.
And George really worked his butt off. He's got more photographs. He's got on the website.
I've been to the website.
You've been there?
Oh yeah. I've really looked through it because it goes into extreme detail and really. And the photograph collection, the archive is just it's incredible.
Yeah, there's thousands and thousands of black and white photos from the period.
It took him to scan and upload those.
Right.
Must have taken months, But it is interesting stuff. And of course, the fact is, we're only talking about something that's 75 years ago, really. So it's actually recent history.
Sure.
Frankly, there's people that's still alive that were, that were around then, But no, it's. It's a stupid question, but I guess you're happy with the version, or is there other tweaks you're thinking maybe we should add this, or because I know we've spoken. You worked on other scripts, so you're a bit of a master at these kind of things.
Well, I don't know if I'm a master, but
you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, yes, I know the procedures, and I know what the positive and the negative parts are. But I feel very satisfied with the text as it is. If we find a producer that wants to add something or subtract something, hopefully we'll be able to discuss it. But I think it's pretty tight, and you can always improve a little bit on dialogue or something, trim it down a little bit. But I worked pretty hard on that. A few years ago, when I submitted my first screenplay to a competition, one of the judges said, "That's a nice story, but your dialogue is really hurting." And I focused on it. because I knew he was serious. He was telling me the honest truth.
He was right.
Oh yeah, but that's an important thing for a lot of writers, especially people starting. Like, I only started 7 years ago, which sounds like a long time if you're in your 20s or something, but not when you're in your 60s. I started.
I'm sorry. What did you do before then? What was your life before this?
Well, I taught English in Paris to businesses for about 12 or 13 years. Before that, I had to work somewhere, so I took a job in a hardware store and in a photographic store.
Right.
And before that, my profession and my training is in anthropology and archaeology.
Really?
Yeah. So I've written a lot of documents as an archaeologist in the central Ohio and Mississippi River Valley.
Right. Well, they're your specialty areas.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I lived there, and it was. I had a network of people, genuinely, from the university that I graduated from, University of Kentucky. I had options to work, and I was putting in a soon-to-be ex-wife through medical school. And I really have to say I've enjoyed almost everything I've ever done, even working with customers and things. Photographic supply store was a really interesting job because I started as a salesman. I wound up as the buyer. And so I'm kind of familiar with a lot of your gear and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's just a matter of personality, and if you understand you're part of a team, that's another thing.
Yes.
George and I both went through the military in the early 70s. He was in the Army in Germany, and I was in the Navy on the USS Enterprise. Big ship.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was an aircraft.
Aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
And I went to the Pacific, and then to Vietnam, and then later got married and took a smaller helicopter carrier called the Iwo Jima to the Mediterranean twice.
Wow. So
I hit everything from Rota, Spain, to the Balearic Islands, and just worked our way across the south of France and Italy, Athens, Izmir, Turkey.
I bet you had a fantastic life, Ivan.
I mean, it was good. The first tour, my wife followed the ship, and she was the only enlisted man's wife, so they all assumed she was an officer's wife, and they treated her very well. So we had a good time because we got married in March, and I think maybe we left in July or August, because I remember being in Spain at Christmas time that year with her. So it was really nice, for early married couple and all that stuff. But everything changes, so.
Of course it does, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in this. I know we should be talking about the script, but the archaeology side of things. So, was there a time span that you were particularly interested in when you were doing that?
I think, well, actually, there were a lot of people interested in a lot of things, but I had a specialty at the time, and I made collections of geological raw material called flint,
right,
or chert, that can be made into tools by chipping. And I had a friend that could make anything. This was amazing. There are these very early lanceolate blade Clovis points that have flutes running up the center of the blade. You can't imagine doing this until you see someone do it. And this fella could do it. And everybody was interested, naturally, in the, what do you call it, the peopling of America. Yeah. For us, the prehistoric. I worked in the Kentucky Heritage Council for a while, and there were a lot of historians that worked at the edge of the prehistoric period and then into the historic. And I worked entirely with the prehistoric. But anyway, I've systematically used geological maps to collect samples of different kinds of raw material to make stone tools. And then we would look at, after the survey or the excavation or whatever, we'd compare the tools to the local cherts and see how much of it is not local, because then we could talk about trade.
Right.
And because I had a larger collection, I had essentially the whole state covered, the state of Kentucky. There's something like, I don't know, 170 U.S. geological maps. A friend and I went through all of them and identified all of the layers that contain chert. And I sampled probably 90% of them before I left archaeology.
Yeah.
And so there was this huge collection of stuff that could be used for comparisons. And there were exotic things that came from New York and Ohio. We found things made out of mica that have only come from the East Coast because there was no mica in west of the Allegheny Mountains. So we knew the source materials. We could start talking about trade. And then we could, by excavation, see, particularly the late prehistoric, we could see the outline of the posts that were used to hold up their huts, their houses and stuff. And we could analyze ceramics through stratigraphy and things and learn a lot about populations. We had interdisciplinary studies with people who specialized in things like geomorphology and just we would have geologists working with us to define certain layers of sediment. As we dug down, can you age this? Can you compare it with something? Can you tell us how old that is? And so there were a lot of chronological techniques, a lot of comparisons between artifacts and stuff. And we were working primarily in conservation because there was a lot of building going on of highways and power plants and things like that. So we would do mitigation for the university because anything that had federal money in it for development had to be surveyed for the environmental, and they did that for animals and other things, and also the prehistoric and historic components of an area that's going to be needs to be mitigated.
Yeah.
So that was really a good period because I really liked the work. It was outside in the summer and in the lab in the winter.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So with this, how much? I know obviously you're trying to get a producer interested, but have you had any interest from anyone in terms of this as a potential?
Not to come back at us. I've contacted numerous people because I have several newsletters and things that I subscribe to online, and some of the one of them is really good, selling your screenplay. Am I supposed to say that? Because they have a part of their service is they take producers' requests for things and they feed them out for a price for a year, and you can find just an immense amount of diversity, everything from TV pilots to you name it. But I focus on feature films.
Yeah.
And it's not as often you find references, but I've had opportunities for the first time to know that I got material under the nose of serious producers.
Yeah.
One guy was looking for, he'd been in the business for 30 years, and he said he didn't want eye candy, he wanted characters, and he wanted plot. And I thought, okay, I got lots of that.
I've got that.
I'm full of plot. And so I sent him not one, not two, not three. I sent him 4 manuscripts over a 4-day period. And I did it in a way to show that I can write drama, I can write comedy, I can write inexpensive, and I can do something very out of the box.
Brilliant.
I didn't get any response, but that doesn't mean anything.
No.
Because he may...
These things take time, that's the thing.
Yeah, he may realize that I wasn't being annoying because, I just sent a simple cover letter. There was no request for a follow-up. I figured that's his, if he wants to do it, fine. But, I think if it gave me the opportunity for at least once to know that I've shown a range of my abilities to a successful producer.
Yeah.
And when I looked him up on IMDb, over 90 movies.
Right.
And everything that you've probably heard of or seen in the last 15 years or 20 years.
He's been involved in.
Especially the superhero and other kind of films like that.
Kind of stuff.
He was in digital and he was in sound. and now he's out trying to just produce what he likes. And he said in his advertisement thing, money is no object.
Wow.
And so that was, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
you can't miss it when somebody
No.
says that, and he wants features, and he tells you exactly what he wants. That's what you send. You don't BS him. You don't try to,
Spin something that isn't. Yeah.
no. And I sent him exactly what he asked for. But, I don't have any great ego about this in a way. There's a lot of extremely talented people. And many times it's just, a matter of coincidence or serendipity or something.
Yeah, I
Like
think
a few people I've run into here. The first day I got here, it's like dead. And then, I got here late. There's nobody around. You're either
And
out
all of a
eating or
sudden-
the day's over. Right now I'm thinking, oh, what did I pay for?
But then suddenly,
Then it picks up, and then yesterday at that
Collins thing, yeah.
that little dinner thing with the aperitifs, I think I had 4 people talk to me seriously,
Yeah.
and exchange cards, and one of those persons said, "Oh, you have a book as well?" I do books too, and I'm thinking, okay,
Brilliant.
yeah.
Brilliant. Well, best of luck.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I
No,
appreciate it.
much.